Good evening. I'd like to call the North Augusta City Council study session for Monday, January 29th, 2024 to order. Wow, this is exciting, North Augusta. Thank you for being here. I guess that's what you get when you invite some guests. People want to hear them. So anyway, great to see everybody. Thank y'all for being here. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our city administrator, Mr. Jim Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a few items for this evening's study session. First will be the review of the draft agenda for next week. Second will be department details, and then we'll move into mayor's matters. We have two separate focus items for tonight, one being the Parks and Recs master plan, and the second being an update on the Riverside Village development. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and move into item one, which is the agenda review. And if you'll move with me in your packet, under old business, we have two items. Item number 5, which is under planning and development, ordinance number 2024-02, to abandon a portion of the storm sewer easement located in Green Forest Commons subdivision, second reading. So as Tom Zeser had previously briefed in the last study session, this is an older easement that they have now got a new easement in place, and so they wanted to surrender this easement. There wasn't a whole lot of questions about this at the last study session, but just wanted to put that out there. That's what we're trying to achieve with this planning and development item, and so that's the second reading if you all approve that, but that was I believe a unanimous reading at the last session. Any questions on that item? Next item we have is under administration, ordinance number 2023-15, adopting the North Augusta Development Code, Chapter 18 of the City of North Augusta, South Carolina Code of Ordinances, providing for new zoning and land development regulations and updating the citywide zoning map accordingly, removed from table, first reading. And so I know there'll be some confused looks on this one. The city has already adopted the development code, and so this is not overturning anything associated with the development code. But if you'll recall, there was a ordinance that was sent to the Planning Commission for review. Planning Commission made some comments and edits, and that came back to the City Council for action, and that was actually listed as an updated ordinance number. So as we went and did an administrative review for these ordinances, our request is to remove this. It was tabled at the time to basically kill this older ordinance, as has already been surpassed by the items going to the Planning Commission that came back to you. And I was hoping Jamie was going to be here because she was the one that was pushing this item up here. I don't know if Kelly can potentially add in as well.
So when we remove from the table, we don't have to vote on it, 2 readings. We do?
Well,
I thought we did the table, we don't even use it.
wasn't this the one we talked about this morning about withdrawing?
We shouldn't have to vote on it. Yeah.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kelly. And we did talk about it in staff meeting about withdrawing, and I've sent a letter to Miss Jamie this afternoon and copied Mr. Clifford. He probably hadn't had a chance to see it yet.
No,
I've asked for it to be withdrawn.
Yeah,
I
I've
think
seen
you got
it.
a copy.
Yeah. So what we did is you tabled it, but now the applicant has withdrawn it, so there's nothing to be done with it. Yeah.
We just have to remove it from the...
No.
We're going to take it off the table.
We don't have to do anything.
So Kelly, we're going to remove this off the agenda
That's
for
right.
next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just totally withdrawn.
That makes it even easier. All right. Under new business for planning and development, we have an impact fee presentation by Tischler Bice. This will be a receipt of information. Normally we try to line this up in a study session, but the availability of time, these folks come out of Maryland, and so they were available at this council meeting on the 5th of February. And so you will be in receipt of information by the presentation that Tischler Bice is going to give at that point in time.
So they'll be here for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
But no council action required other than just being in receipt of information. So you're not voting on an impact fee resolution or an ordinance. You're just going to be in receipt of information of their kind of plan going forward.
Yep.
The next item you have is under planning and development, ordinance number 2024-03, Riverside Village Master Development Agreement, first reading. And so our intention is to publish the draft Master Development Agreement after the executive session this evening, and you'll see in the notes for tonight we have an executive session specific to the Riverside Village MDA, and so after that executive session is done, we'll put the finishing touches on the ordinance and have that ready for review. And part of the discussion you'll get is with the study session tonight to talk about kind of the long-term plan for Riverside Village, and then there'll be some discrete actions that'll come from that, and one of those will be this MDA, which you'll be voting on as early as next week. So I'll hold any other comments until we get into executive session for this item. For the next, we have under Public Safety, ordinance number 2024-04, granting an easement to Dominion Energy, South Carolina, for placement of facilities to serve the Public Safety Headquarters first reading. And so this allows Dominion access to the lines that are under the ground there at the Public Safety Headquarters. If you recall, we did a very similar easement for the Fire Station number 1. So this is a routine action, and part of this is to make sure that the city doesn't have any facilities or structures over this easement so that they have full access to it through that time. And so Kelly's had a chance to review this as well. And so this will be something we'll ask the council to take action on next week. Any questions on any of the previous? Last but not least, under administration, we'll have resolution number 2024-06, which is the appointment of a hearing officer for business licenses. So this is something that Kelly and I have been working, city attorney, on, so that the city council can appoint a hearing officer, so that if there's ever a case for a revocation or a suspension of business licenses, an appropriate party can hear a potential appeal to that decision. And so in order to do that, the council has to appoint that person or that body to do so. So Kelly and I are working that and hope to have that ready for prime time next Monday. Very good. Okay. With that, we'll go ahead and go into department details. And leading us off tonight is finance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Cycle 1 will have a due date Monday, February 5th, and Cycle 2 will have their disconnect dates that Tuesday and Wednesday, February 6th and 7th. Our tax bills were generated and mailed out last week. Those will have a due date of May 1st on them. And also, just to let you know that Finance and IT hosted the GovSense team on site last week. These are our new software company, and they also met with Public Works as well as planning and started the first stages of implementation.
And just so citizens know, this is the new software that's going to allow us to upgrade all our financial pieces. So a lot of the issues that we've had when it comes to water and across the board, we are moving into modern times. So.
Yes, sir. And we also discussed the customer portal as well in great detail.
Thanks for all your efforts, Linda.
No problem. Thanks.
Linda.
Yes.
Real quick, with the software, will that allow like business licenses, permits, things of that nature through the internet as well?
Correct. We are looking to be able to do all things online. It will not all happen at once, but it will happen in stages. You're welcome.
Thank you, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
I think also most notably, Mayor and Council, is that that we end up shutting down the financial software for 2 weeks at the end of the year to reconcile all records. And with this new software, that will not be a requirement, which will be much more helpful for our citizens. And I know you get a lot of feedback on that at the end of the calendar year. All right. Next up, Public Services with James Hutton.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just to update on some projects and some customer service. Wastewater interceptor project. It involves rehabilitating 29,280 feet of wastewater pipes, some of the largest pipes in our collection system. We have a pre-construction meeting to meet with Augusta Industrial Services. They are the contractor of record for that project. Project's supposed to start next week. The funding for that project's ARPA and the SCIP grant that we received through the federal government. Moving forward, Clay Street Pump Station. That project has come out of the administrative stage and moved into the construction stage. Republican Contracting is working on, I assume, collecting up some materials, ordering some supplies for the project. They have 532 days to complete the project as of last week. Just a brief overview on that project. It's the pump station is one of our critical components that we have in our water distribution system that helps keep the levels in the elevated tanks full. And the highlight of the evening is we rolled out the Blue Bin collection program in August. Shortly thereafter, we opened up the recycling facility. And we just met last week, and we went over everything. We fully staffed. Well, we'd be able to get some equipment that we wasn't able to get in-house over the past 2 or 3 years because of COVID. And we met with staff, and the people who are out there performing the work are committed to relocate the collection of these blue bins from a bi-weekly program to a weekly program. So unless otherwise redirected, we are going to start March 1st doing a weekly collection instead of bi-weekly.
That's awesome.
That's great news. Thank you, James. You know, let me just say that when this came out, as a city, we said we were going to do the right thing, and recycling is a right thing for our municipality, for our citizens. And we knew going in that we had some shortage of staff, there were some issues, and that we looked at what mechanism we wanted to use. And I think at this point, the bins are best because we're not charging anybody, they're free. But again, that doesn't mean as we move forward, we're not open to other ways to look at that. But we said all along that we aren't going to go every week, but we're going to move in that direction. So what I'm asking citizens is just understand we're aware, because we're citizens. I have the same thing. But we're going to put us in the best situation for us to provide the services that you deserve, that you need to have. And I think, James, your folks are showing that we can do it, and we can do it the right way, and that's exciting. So on behalf of council, thank you, James, your whole team. Very positive for citizens.
James, did we send out the little flyers where the blues this week, the greens that week? I mean, this year? Oh, it didn't? Oh, well, I guess I didn't get one. Okay.
Yeah, so for the folks who couldn't hear online, that's, James and his team are going to have a bit of an information campaign to update citizens on the fact that we're going to a weekly collection model for our recycling. So that'll be Facebook, that'll be other means as well. Subject to any questions, we'll move to planning and development with Tommy Paradise.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the Art South Carolina Policy Committee will meet Thursday afternoon. We have a Board of Zoning Appeals Tuesday week, February the 6th. And probably the biggest thing is we found it necessary, the planning department has to run public ads, notifying people of our public hearings and our what's on the agenda for some things. And we found it necessary to move away from the North Augusta Star because they're changing their printing schedule to where it's not going to be compatible with our need to publish. So I listened Mr. Zier talk about where he does his advertisements at, and we're going to move forward unless there's some objection to doing our publishing in the Augusta Chronicle. It should be the coverage should be about the same as the Aiken Standard, but my understanding it's a lower fee. Thank you, sir.
Well, I was in the doctor's office today, just happened to pick up the Augusta Chronicle, and it did say things like, it's very noticeable in the Chronicle.
I asked Tommy to mention this to council as well because, there's a track record of us advertising in the Post and Courier North Augusta Star. And so as we change this, advertisement technique, I wanted it to be in a public way so you were all notified this is how this is going to go. And the primary driver is not cost. The primary driver is their publication schedule, that they're going to like a monthly schedule for a hard copy newspaper. And so when we looked at the timing that was associated with public notices, that put us pretty far behind to be able to do that. So we wanted to make a public pronouncement, if you will, that this is going to be the new hard copy methodology of advertising, which is through the Chronicle, based pretty much exclusively on their publication timeline, not based on the overall cost. Subject to any questions, we'll move on to public safety with Chief Johnson.
Good evening. Just a couple updates. We had a new PSO and a firefighter start last week, and we had another PSO start today so that we can start getting our staffing back up. And this week we're hosting an emergency vehicle driver's training class for fire apparatus. It's only people within our department. We have about 10 people in it, and it's certification through the South Carolina Fire Academy for that.
Next up, Rick Meyer for Parks and Rec.
Okay, from Parks and Recreation tonight, Mayor and Council, the Riverview Park Activity Center is thrilled to announce that our senior stretch instructor, Ruth Reynolds, was recognized today during her class with the WJBF Channel 6 Giving Your Best Award. Not sure which night that'll be on the news, but we're tickled for Ruth and the job she does in that class. Also, March 7th through the 9th, Nike has just announced that the Riverview Park Activity Center in North Augusta will host a new high school basketball event. It'll be the last session of a high school basketball league that leads to a national championship in high school basketball. So we're tickled that we'll have 8 teams in town, and will be an economic impact for this community.
Has this been rotated across the country, or is this first
Yeah, they've
time they're
had
doing it?
this has been going on, this league. In fact, a few weeks ago, they played in Greenville. So it's a league, it's not just one, and we'll host the final session of the league.
Yeah,
Is that something we might be able to keep coming in year after year, or is it just we got the lucky draw?
We certainly hope so. Yep. And last on my list for department details is we have 2 full weeks of youth basketball remaining, with the finals of the 38th Annual Round Ball Classic scheduled for Saturday, February 10th.
Rick, when does spring sports sign up? Is that coming up pretty soon?
Yes, thank you. Starts on February 1st.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Next up, Carl with Tourism.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Couple updates here. The audiovisual upgrade for Community Center got ahead of schedule a little bit and started today. We're going to put some new audio and 4 monitors around the perimeter of the banquet room at Community Center, so we're looking forward to bringing that on board. American Red Cross will be at the Community Center on Wednesday from 10 to 2 for a blood drive, so we're happy to support that effort. Bids were received and vetted to produce informational signage at Calhoun Park. We anticipate, if everything goes well with artwork and production, to be within hand about 6 to 8 weeks.
Those are the education panels that we're going to put up there by the Mayor Weather Monument, right?
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, we're looking forward to getting that project on.
And part of that's going to have a QR code, so what's going to be great is each panel will have its piece that's been written, but they'll have a QR code that'll take folks direct to the Library of Congress, so they'll be able to continue that. So I think it's going to be very positive.
Yes, sir. The last tidbit here is tourism marketing coordinator positions posted, and it'll be open until Friday, February 16th. And we've had a generous response with that and hope to get some more.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Carl.
Next up, Tom Zeser from Public Works.
Good evening. Last Thursday, we conducted a final inspection of the Bluff Avenue streetscape project. Did result in a punch list of minor items to the contractor. The most significant of those is that they will have to adjust a few of the new manholes to the finished grade of the asphalt, and so that will likely involve some minor cutting and patching around those manholes. So when you get questions or complaints from citizens asking why we're cutting up our brand new road, that's what that's about.
Did we ever decide anything about the lights? I know we were talking about the lighting was real.
We've not initiated any changes to those yet. We're still waiting to get.
It is very bright. Looks good, but bright.
Again, I've not received any specific complaints from anybody yet.
Okay. Yeah, they look good, but they're bright. Well, we need them downtown. Yeah, we need more bright.
And then I included in the administrator's weekly update a few weeks ago was some about a DOT resurfacing project. There's some activity going on Georgia Avenue, some cutting and patching in progress, and that is part of a very large DOT road paving project that not only includes Georgia Avenue from Jackson up to Edgefield Road from Georgia up to Belvedere Clearwater Road, all of Knox Avenue, and Martintown Road from Butler Avenue all the way to US 1. So that's a massive road rehabilitation project that will be occurring over the next several months.
Now, did you say this is at different times? Because I don't
Yeah,
want to be like Augusta. You make a detour, then you come to another one, got to make another detour for people.
No, this is my understanding. This is all under one contract, so I imagine it'll be conducted in phases. I've asked for a more specific schedule. I've not received that, but when I do, I will share it with you.
DOT doesn't always give us a great schedule in advance, so.
No, but we're happy to see this
We're ta-
much
see
needed
this.
work.
Very good. Thank you, Tom.
Last but not least, Kayla Ferguson from HR.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. If you'll look on the back of your department details, we have our current openings. I think we're doing quite well with our recruiting efforts, so fingers crossed we do keep doing good. So. I know it. Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor and Council, that concludes our focus items, and we're going to go ahead and move right into the, department details, move into our focus items. And I'll have Mr. Rick Meyer introduce our distinguished panel of presenters tonight for the Parks and Rec Master Plan. And the hope is that you'll be able to take some feedback from this group as we help shape our potential funding resource options with CPSD 5 as we start to build those lists this year.
Thank you, Jim. This process started back the end of 2022 when we, after reviewing RFQs, we contracted the Land Plan Group South team, and they are here tonight. We're thrilled to take a look at a draft. I'll remind you, this is not final. You have your look and your say tonight, and please do ask questions, but we're thrilled to have them. I want to introduce the team that has helped us with this master plan this year process, Mr. Rick McMacken, Mr. Chris Lamka, Olivia Etheridge, and Mr. Ryan Bland. We appreciate them, and we'll start off here with Rick. I'll let you take the floor.
Mayor, Council, it's nice to be back. On behalf of our team, Land Plan and Boudreaux Group, Chris, Olivia, and Ryan, we would like to personally thank staff for all the help and hospitality they've provided throughout this process. It's been a good, long, thorough process, and they've always been there helping us, getting us everything we needed in a timely manner, and we're very appreciative of all their assistance. So tonight we're going to go through a quick summary of every chapter of the master plan report. We did this summary meeting once with staff before, and it lasted about a little over 3 hours, so we'll try to do a summary of the summary if we can, and we'll try to give you as much information as possible. And again, like Rick said, you will have another opportunity after tonight. We'll take any comments that we receive, incorporate any changes to the report as a result of tonight's comments, get you a final draft within a couple of weeks. It is still a draft, and you'll have time to go through the whole report and go as thoroughly as you want to, and provide us comments later that we can incorporate into that final report document. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris Lampkin. He's going to walk you through the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. You can go ahead to the next slide. As Rick said, we took about 3 hours going through this in heavy detail, so we're going to try and do this in 30 minutes or less. But we had a great opportunity when we first started a kickoff meeting to go on an on-site tour with staff and get on your historic trolley and visit every park. So it was great to see every park and hear from their perspective, and then go into meaningful engagement, there, the next slide, with your community. So we needed to hear not only from your staff, but then your community, so we could help shape this master plan. Next slide, please. So meaningful engagement, it started with a survey. So we had an online and paper copy survey, and we had nearly 1,000 people respond, and that's about 4% of your population. I mean, you might think that's not a lot, but that really is a significant amount in plans like this. So normally we're seeing 1 to 2%, and you're at 4%. So you're more than double than your average community. But we also had over 100 plus touch points with individual people, one-on-one conversations, some joint stakeholder group meetings. Next slide. From the survey, and I know it's a little small here, and I'm not going to try and read everything throughout this presentation, but these are pretty important topics. So these came directly from our survey. So all the respondents agree that your staff is amazing and your parks are amazing. So you're doing a wonderful job, so we definitely want to continue to do that. North Augusta parks, facilities, and trails are highly used, so over 63% of respondents say that they visit the park or trail more than 20 times a year. When asked if recreation facilities and parks and greenway were maintained well, they all agree, overwhelmingly, 83% and 87%. Passive park usage ended up being one of our top things that people want, that your community wants, with about 91% of respondents saying that they participate in general passive park activities, and over 50% say that they participate in these activities often. Next slide. The top 4 facilities that respondents would like to see more of are splash pads, trails and greenways, fields and activities for people with disabilities, and then exercise classes and weight training facilities kind of rounded out your top 4 as they tied there. Participants have a little bit of mixed feelings on whether they feel informed about facilities, events, and programs. So we want to definitely work on that. And then over 85% of parks and recreation facilities users and 78% of greenway users say they feel safe while visiting your facilities, which is a great thing, great response there. However, 43% said they would feel even more comfortable if we had some increased police presence. And that's more or less primarily on the greenway, if you will. Next slide. So we needed to know the facilities that we had. So next slide. We had a robust outing during our visioning workshop where we went to every park facility that we were contracted to. Each of them will be featured in the report. This one here being Riverview Park, and so a brief synopsis of what you have currently, some existing photos, and then a by the numbers. So we wanted you to see acreage used, the number of facilities, and so forth. Next slide. Benchmarking. So we needed to look at how you compare to other communities across the country. Next slide. So the National Park and Recreation Association puts out an annual report that allows us to do some comparative analysis with you and about 100 other communities of like sizes to come up with this report. So you as a whole, you have 18 parks. You have a potential for another park in the country club property to the north. The national average, though, if you looked at that, they're only maintaining about 12 parks in their system. You have about 275 acres of park that's existing. If we added the country club property, we'd have well over 400 acres to maintain, but the national average is about 278. Next slide. We have about 23 staff. Again, we did this in 23, so now I think we have about 20 staff here full-time for the Park and Rec staff. And an operating budget of about $3.2 million. Average is about 2.5 if we look at the national average. But if you look at the highest quartile in your group, some of those are operating at about $6 million budgets. So if you look at the things that your Park and Rec staff are doing, such as the Peach Jam, or setting up for all the events that are in downtown, or changing out the banners and setting up for Christmas and festivals, the Jack-o'-lantern Jubilee, you guys are doing a lot more than your average Park and Rec department. Next slide. We also then looked at every facility that you have and compared that to all the facilities that are within a community, typically playgrounds, basketball, baseball, diamond, youth, versus adult, and looked at what you have. So we'll have a concise list of the items that you have compared to the national average. If you look at the first one, playgrounds, 95% of agencies have a playground. Is about for every 3,028 residents, you would have a single playground. So national average would put you at needing about 8.3, and you have 8. So that's how you would read that schedule there. Next slide. We also did a comparative analysis of your rate for your activity center and what you provide with peer and neighboring communities from an in-city, out-of-city, and a senior rate, and just to do that comparison. The asterisk, though, there's 2 on this that have an aquatic center as part of their offerings, so that's why they're a little bit higher in their fee. Next slide. So we took all of that from meaningful engagement, and we needed to set what we like to call guiding principles, and those are the values that we want to use throughout this plan and for your community. The first one is accommodating and inclusive. We want to make sure that all of our parks within the North Augusta system are inclusive of individuals of all ages and abilities. We heard a lot about the need for passive recreation, so we want to make sure that we preserve and maintain passive green space, open space, and trees. We need to provide access, good access to parks and trails. So the idea is that we would want to be every door to be within 15 minutes of a park, whether you're riding a bike or walking. We want to continue to be vibrant and inviting, maintain existing facilities, keep them vibrant, attractive, and inviting. Small things matter, and I think that's going to be a key because, again, you have beautiful parks, and one of the things we're going to talk about is just kind of maintaining what you have. So we want to continue to implement and maintain small-scale amenities such as bike racks, water stations, emergency call stations, that all of these largely contribute to the success here in North Augusta. Enhance safety and security, and then again, just continue the momentum. So the recommendations, again, continue the momentum, and we want to leave a legacy within North Augusta. So within the report, each of the parks are going to receive a page that looks like this, where we've broken down the recommendations. Some of them will be within phases. Not all of them will have a conceptual plan, as you see here, but many of them do. They'll show a before and an after. And I'm going to turn it over to Olivia to describe a couple of those parks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So starting with Bunting Park, we went to see this one. This is a really nice neighborhood park you all have. Some of our recommendations for this kind of pertain to safety, activities, and general improvements. So starting with the safety, we've recommended a fence.
Olivia, can you
hear me?
Lean down, just I
Lean
want
down a little
people watching live stream can hear you.
There you go.
Thank you. That's perfect. Yeah, that's
okay.
Good.
Good.
You don't mind. Thank you.
So starting with safety implementations, we're recommending a fence along the sidewalk on Marion, and then also repairing or replacing the stairwell that comes down the hillside you see, and then also moving the power line that goes over the open lawn. And then going into activities, we have a hillside slide, tongue twister, and also a performance stage and a new playground, a mural wall, and a pavilion with seating. We go to the next slide. So into that a little bit. And then some of the general improvements that we're recommending are site lighting, making sure everything is just up to date with ADA code, and drainage issues, sod improvements, things like that. Here's the next one. So this gives you an overview of the plan itself. So you can see some of the different features there. So these are the hillside slides. All types of different ways you can do this. It can be more man-made, more natural feel to it. And then the mural wall. So this would be a good way to involve local artists or even the schools in the area. And then here you see on the right a stage. And then this is an example of a playground. So you can have a lot of fun with it, be a little whimsical, and have fun for the kids with this one. right, and then Summerfield Park, we also went and saw this one. This, from what we've heard and seen, this park gets a lot of usage. So what we want to do with this park is we're recommending it be done in phases. So phase 1 is going to be more of your short-term implementations, so things that are necessary or easier to do or don't require as much funding. So with this, we're recommending a new splash pad, since the splash pad gets a lot of use, as well as fences on the perimeters of the park. And then also seeing if there's a way to use the existing old school building that's there, whether that be through a partnership with the owner or through purchasing it so it can become more of an activity center. And then phase 2, this is going to be more geared toward things that require more funding or just take some more time to implement. And with this is landscaping along the old Edgefield Road. This is a new inclusive playground, renovated restrooms and pavilions, repairing the basketball courts and making sure those are kept up to date, as well as including more shade and seating at the basketball courts. The soccer fields, we want to address the drainage problems that are there and even do turf at one or more of those fields. And then just making sure the entire park has enough seating and lighting and other safety elements as well. So this, again, is an overview of the park of what we're recommending. And then also you'll see there a walking trail, an 8-foot walking trail around the park. So these are some examples of a splash pad on your left and a playground on your right. And then this is a turf field option. With this, you get a lot of room to really do a lot with the striping on it. You can do it for multiple types of sports or different age groups, whatever you may need for that. Yes, ma'am. And then this is an example of a playground. We really feel like you have a good opportunity to, like I said, make an inclusive playground, a really big playground, something that would be really popular and really help that park grow. I'm going to give it back over to Chris.
One of the next ones that we wanted to focus on tonight is Maud Edenfield Park. And one of the first things we noticed is that the elementary school is right there. And how can we get to the elementary school? So we want to try and partner with the North Augusta Elementary School and look at maybe creating a nature trail that goes from the park up to the adjacent road into the school. That would then allow them to have some field trips, you know, some walking school bus field trips, see nature, get out there, have some science classes, and then maybe get to play on the playground or something. So something that we could look into, but something that we really got excited about. This is an opportunity also to have a nice inclusive playground. You already have a playground there, and it's got some really nice shade structure, but it could be renovated. We also want to ensure that we redo the parking lot and make sure there's actually an ADA route to the playground, to the basketball courts, where there isn't one right now. And try and relocate the basketball courts a little bit away from the playground. Sometimes language is a little different. They're close together. So we have relocated that a little bit. Next slide, please.
But now that court is very special. I'm telling you. And you can ask Park and Recreation people. Many of the heroes come out of that basketball goal. That court.
Okay.
So how far are you talking moving it?
It's on the site. I'll show you an image coming up. So it's really not too far, but far enough.
That is a historical site.
Okay.
I'm telling you. So I would.
Well, maybe we'll move the playground.
Move the playground. That's not as historical.
Yeah, we could absolutely relocate
but I'll tell
the
you,
playground.
think on that, because that court is something else.
Okay. Yeah, well, we know it gets a lot of use,
Yes,
so we
it
don't want to necessarily remove it from the park. We definitely want the function of the basketball court there. So that's a great point. Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Yeah. One thing we also looked at is we want to try and make a connection over to the Greenway and cross East Buena Vista, and we could do that through a mid-block crossing there and use some RRFBs or rectangular rapid flashing beacons so that we can make that connection that could serve as another trailhead. Go ahead. So here is the design concept. One of the big elements that you'll see there, number 10, there on your top right is where that basketball court was relocated to. So we can definitely make that change if everyone feels. It's actually right about where that number 9 is, just a little bit north of that, or to the left of number 7, which is a new picnic shelter and restroom there. So.
Curious, Pat, I'm not educated on why would the location, if it's within 10, 15 yards, does that make a difference? I mean, if we upgrade it, that's what.
Well, we're going to upgrade it, but I'm telling you, it is just something special to these young men and men who are now 70 years old. But I mean, I guess longest is in good shape, and like we did at Summerfield years ago.
Sure.
I mean, that's turned out to be great.
Sure, yes, ma'am.
But this is just, it would almost, where's John Felak? It would almost be like taking down Lookaway Hall.
That's a big one.
Jeremy, am I correct?
Might be a little bit of a stretch, Pat.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, well, we can definitely revisit that for sure and make sure that we honor that.
You just want to be sure there's a basketball court in that location, right? And so, because that's tons of people use it in that area. And so I think you just want to be sure, like, we don't remove it. Yeah.
Sure. One of the things we want to do is make sure that we really kind of connect into the community center as well. So the landscape out there is beautiful, but look at doing a stream restoration project. I know kids love to get down in water, so allow them a little bit of access there as well. A big ticket item for there is a restroom and shelter is needed there, so we're not having to go up to the community center to do that. And then adding some pickleball courts as well, trying to add in 4 of those there to the right. So culminating with a restructuring of that parking lot there. So these are some images, inspiration images, again, just some different shots of what that could look like. The right-hand side, there's a small performance stage. So the one right now is in some disrepair and could be redone, similar to this. Make it a little bit easier for individuals to get to.
And I guess, I don't know who, Jim, the city did not build that little stage. Who was it? Anybody in here remember? I mean, it was Satoma or Arts and Hair? Yeah. So I presume, to me, we need to sort of talk to them too, since they put it up and spent the money.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Next slide. Images of pickleball courts that we recently designed and completed there, something that could look very similar. You do, yes. So the current tennis courts would stay there. Yeah, if you go back 2 slides there. So the tennis courts are to your bottom there, so those 4 would stay. We would like to do some landscape refresh around them, maybe redo that information board there. They are, yes, sir, absolutely. So we're adding 4 new ones there to the right-hand side. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to talk about the community center.
So as part of this plan, we also evaluated structures that were in or adjacent to parks. The community center obviously is kind of hand in hand with Maude Aidenfield Park, so we tried to look at ways to optimize that. And one of the things that really stood out as he's talking about making improvements to like kind of the stream restoration and things like that is that you have this really nice, generous outdoor patio that gets very little use. That I'm sure had the original thought of having indoor-outdoor uses for events as people rented the facility and things like that. But to be able to make that more of the park than it is now, whether you add umbrellas and chairs up there, probably take down that cement wall that I think was meant for probably privacy for private events, but really doesn't do much other than kind of block your view of part of the park and the playground area and that sort of thing. So that's one of the considerations. Looking at the community center itself, kind of two different themes, modernization and reconfiguration. It's a great location. It's a good size. It should be a marketable facility. It's dated. It's configured, particularly the large banquet room is not optimally configured. Anybody who's tried to hold an event there knows the stage is the hierarchy of the room, like where the stage is small. It gets cut in half. If you do a half room, you're trying to configure a triangle. Essentially, it's not necessarily optimal for being able to lease it for events and use it to the best of its ability and marketability. Also, with the interior design overall, parts of it are a bit institutional. It does need some maintenance in some areas. It's an updating of the facility overall as part of this is to recommend looking at that, doing a feasibility study, a bit of a master plan of how you could bring, there are parts of it that have been updated, the restrooms, the kitchen is in good shape, things like that, to be able to get a better grasp on how to overall make the facility, bring it back up to, I guess, a more marketable standard is what we'd call it. And we think it would be really competitive in this market for leasing for those kind of mid-size events. At the same time, we also looked at Riverview Activity Center. Same recommendation for that is since it's in excellent condition. It's a fantastic asset to this community. It has so much that so many other communities would like to have. With that said, some of the interior spaces are maybe not optimized for current use. We have some pictures here of some of the staff spaces. Also, some of the programming of some of those kind of interior spaces has changed over time. Same kind of concept. It might be a good idea to look at a feasibility study to optimize some of those spaces a little bit better for current and future needs. Also, one thing that came up kind of consistently, I would say, with the public input as well as the amount of programming done there, either by the city or for large events that come and rent the facility from North Augusta, is the concept of gym additions. When it was designed, the newer part, the front part, was designed to be able to facilitate 2 additional gyms. This is essentially the configuration. Where how you would connect those either to the rear or to the front, but they would be essentially 2 new buildings that would flank the existing gyms. And we just kind of did this schematic just to get a good scale on access to parking and things like that. What would kind of change as far as that's concerned. But as part of this, it's come out that it's probably time to start at least considering looking into 2 additional gyms for some of the larger events and for the growing programs at the city. So here was another kind of look at how that was looked at when the facility was imagined. Just an example of another part of the space that we wanted to highlight that I think had really great intentions probably when it was originally constructed is that rear atrium and patio area. It technically overlooks the river, but is other than like during Peach Jam for their marketing and for sales of things, it's really underutilized. So just another example of doing a feasibility study to better get a grasp on how you can better optimize spaces like this. Tons of square footage maybe just can be used in better ways in some places, and just take a holistic look at that.
The Riverview Park is next on the list, and it's a fantastic facility that accompanies the activity center. It's also, those 2 are your highest visited park facilities in tandem with your greenway. But this is a very large site, and so it's broken up into actually 3 different phases. One of the first things we want to do is make sure that we're meeting all of our ADA standards and do an audit there. There's some areas that may or may not be, meeting those standards or could be meeting them better, facilitating that. We want to make sure that we also talk to the high school and discuss, some kind of timeline of when they may or may not be moving out or building their own facilities, because that really is a big hingent upon what we can.
Well, they voted last Tuesday to proceed forward with the baseball and softball field.
Awesome.
Now, will that mean next year? No, 2025. So we
It'll be
moving
done
in the right
25.
direction now.
We're moving right along. That's good. That's very good to know, because I know, one of the things was we just really didn't have a good timeline on what that could be when we started out. So we want to also then add in some additional pickleball to this area, some shade. We want to look at, in phase 2, doing some improvements to the fields, especially field 1 through 4. Look at all the backstops and start replacing those. Some of the vinyl fencing has been in disrepair there, and install some new dugouts. Next slide.
Let me ask one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
The 2 new gyms, now at one time, Rick and Bob sitting up there, we were going to do, all of them at one time, we run out of money. But they were like at an angle, the two new ones y'all talking about, but not like this, at an angle. I guess Rick and them, what about if we did those 2 new gyms, pickleball courts? They would not be basketball courts. That way, like when I go in for practice, I'm not having to move nets. When they come in after me, they're having to put up nets.
Sure.
So I don't know.
I think that it's a great comment, and what we could do as we design this, we could, design items in the floor, flush mountings, to have that as an opportunity.
And one more thing, police station headquarters now, that's I presume is going to be tore down. I had in my head also where y'all got the pickleball, put pickleball on that side of the street and the tennis on this side of the street. Sure. And that using that property for, city fun, for people.
Yes, ma'am.
So.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful comment.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, this is what we're here for. I want to hear from you. One of the things that we do struggle with a little bit on that side is parking, and so we need to look at how we can increase parking, as well as have some temporary parking that doesn't rut, during a rain event. So we're looking at some stay-light fire lane sod material that could support that. And then phase 3, which we got some wonderful news about the high school building their own fields, would be looking at converting the existing baseball field into 3 Little League size baseball fields. So that would increase your number of fields here to 12 total.
And I presume, young man, because you was talking about for special needs, we've already broke the ground, they're clearing everything, so our Miracle League field is on the way.
Awesome.
Okay, that will be dead. Well, we'll use it as a multi-purpose when the Miracle people are not there, but it will be specifically for handicapped and disabled people.
Yes, ma'am.
Not just baseball, but we're going to do a lot of stuff.
Good. So this is a conceptual plan of what we like to see there. So if you look in the middle there, where to the north, where the former high school baseball, well, current high school baseball field, we're looking at putting 3 new Little League baseball fields there. Fence line either between 200 and 225 feet. Then we would convert the existing softball field into more or less a championship field. That way we put a little bit more seating around that one and make that kind of your premier site there. In the middle there, where the existing playground is, I know we've planted some wonderful shade trees, but we have a few more years until they get up and have some shade. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? And the second best time is now. So you guys are doing a wonderful job with the tree canopies, but trying to put some shade up there, maybe some shade sails temporarily to accommodate that. But we also want to try and put 2 shelters, and one of them having a restroom facility, either on either side there. And then providing an ADA accessible route from the parking lot to both the splash pad and the playground. So right now the playground has a fairly accessible route, but the splash pad does not. And then a little walking loop around that area. So we kind of have these little mini areas within your large park. Number 9 there, we also want to add in at least 4, but we're showing 5 pickleball courts there. There's already a very flat level field space there, having a shade area as well while people are waiting. Number 7 is actually a shade shelter dedicated to the tennis facility. Right now there's not one. And we would accommodate some of that by removing the existing old restroom building behind field number 2 there in the field 1 through 4 pod. And then making some, again, improvements to parking there in number 10. We'd use that Stay-Light fire lane material to make sure that we can overflow park there without rutting out that facility. And then add some additional parking to the gray parking lot there in the back. So some of the inspiration images here, again, we want to make this not necessarily always geared towards sports. We want to make sure there's good walking loops throughout there, because not every child or parent is watching their child. They're attending to the other child if you have multiple. Next slide. Miracle League field here, excited that you guys are pursuing that and providing opportunities for individuals with disabilities. Next slide. Again, pickleball opportunity there to add that. Next slide. The greenways. So one of the biggest things, now we did not do an exhaustive look at the greenway because you've already done that, but we wanted to particularly look at a few options for you. But we want to make sure that we provide a downtown connection. So that's one of the things that we're missing here. Again, talked about that connection to Maude Edenfield Park across East Buena Vista. Look at using a building that you guys already own, the old Johnson Electric building, and maybe converting that into a restroom or maybe a cafe space or a bike shop there. And then one of the biggest things is look at having the greenway as non-motorized. So this is meant for recreation facility and not necessarily a transportation facility. So looking at that, no scooters or e-bikes on that. Next slide. So one of the ways to make that connection of bluff is through an existing alleyway. And this is a cross-section of what that could look like. So we would one-way the alley. It already is supposed to be, but we need to make sure that we sign it that way. And provide signage not only on the ground plane surface, but also vertically as well, just to kind of delineate those spaces. So this is one option. Next slide. And this is an example of what that could look like. This is a little bit more decorative, but definitely something that you could do by utilizing brick pavers. This is on the Georgia Tech campus, and it shows you where people are supposed to be. So very similar to what we were showing earlier. So the North Augusta Country Club property. This is a very high-level overview diagram of what we think you could do in this space. Now, one of the first recommendations on this is going to be doing a deeper dive through a master plan and feasibility study of what could be there. So the idea is that we want to utilize some of the space that's there. There's already a little over 4.5 miles of cart path that could be used as walking trail. So we want to take half of this space and leave it passive. And then the other half, that number 7, we want to look at maybe providing a 9-hole par 3 golf course in that location. We would have multiple walking trails. Look at doing a second disc golf course that would go around the golf course there. Provide mountain biking trails. And then access to the ponds that are there for some fishing and recreation. Number 4 there on the lower left-hand corner would be an opportunity to convert the tennis courts that are there into additional pickleball facilities or potentially basketball courts in that location. When we want to round it out by providing another playground opportunity there, as well as a large amphitheater in that area labeled number 2, kind of to your top left there. So we would use the grade in that to provide the vantage point for any kind of concert in that area. That side.
Now, where did you see the, say, the passive, you know, people want to come read a book or
Yes, ma'am.
just enjoy nature?
So essentially, the whole left half and then kind of the outer part of the donut there. So number 7 would be where that par 3 golf course would be located. And then everything on the periphery and to the left is more or less passive recreation. So nature trails, mountain bike trails.
If they don't want to walk or do any of that, they just want to sit, read a book.
Sure.
Be in that area?
What we would do is carve out different pockets throughout to where you could have seating areas or shelters. But this one's a very high level look, but that would definitely be part
The
of it.
amphitheater would be a place you could sit.
It would be.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I have a concert 24 hours a day.
You don't. You're right. Correct, Mayor. Next slide. So some inspirational images. There's some single track mountain bike potential. Again, utilizing some of the space for a second disc golf course. Next slide. Having plenty of opportunity for, recreation, either walking or fishing, enjoying nature. Next slide. General strolls, with the family. There's 140 plus acres out there, so we have so much to work with, and it's a beautiful piece of property. Next slide. An idea of the amphitheater, again, having the backdrop of one of the ponds as your backdrop, and then utilizing, there's a tremendous steep hill that could hold a lot of people on that side. Next slide. Opportunity again for some additional pickleball courts or even basketball courts. Next slide. And again, golf. So potentially providing a par 3 golf course there. And we don't necessarily know at this point whether you would privatize that, hire it out, or have North Augusta Park staff run that. Obviously, that's a big undertaking if they did that. So again, just kind of exploring the ideas. And one thing I failed to note is that we would try and partnership with the YMCA to provide an outdoor swimming pool. So to utilize the existing swimming pool and partner with them. Next slide. So operations and finance. Again, we didn't go through every park. The parks will be in here, but wanted to go through some of the highlights with you. But operations and finance. Again, we looked at the annual membership, and you're pretty low compared to what you offer, and again, neighboring communities. Next slide. So what we're looking at doing is an increase to that. And I know you've done some small incremental rate increases here even recently, but one of the things we want to do is make sure that you're getting enough for that. And these are very reasonable prices even as they are. So looking at doing the individual rate in city to an annual of 120 and a family of 275. As a family at a YMCA, you're typically paying about $100 a month. For similar facilities that you already have, just to put that in perspective. And then think about, just from an administrative standpoint, maybe just going to an annual membership. I know some people like to do a trial, maybe you have just a 7-day trial or a free pass. I know we have the free pass, 1-day trial, but cutting down some of the administrative tasks by doing this. Next slide. So one of the other bigger things is, based on your needs right now, from what we looked at, benchmarking and what your staff is currently taking care of, we believe that you need 4 additional full-time staff members. Those staff members, 2, we believe would need to be grounds crew. 1 would be a maintenance and janitorial staff there at the activity center, and 1 additional program coordinator, especially for weekend staff. Operating budget, we would, if we provided 4 full-time staff, we would need to increase that budget to about $500,000. 2/3 of that budget would go towards staffing, and then the remainder of that would be to provide additional support for maintenance and repair. So increase that budget for maintenance and repair, and then look at purchasing new maintenance equipment. Next slide. We also want to make sure that we're promoting North Augusta and all its recreation offerings to the best of our ability. As you remember, some of our, about 50% of our respondents said they didn't necessarily feel well informed. While you have a very informative website, it is basic, and we think that you could do an overhaul on that, make sure that we have online signups, can pay the fee. I think we're working on something with finance right now for some things that we might be able to piggyback on as well. And then most importantly, we just need to celebrate the progress. So having press releases on anytime you check something off the list from this master plan, or anytime you fix and make repairs to a specific park, you know, any news is great news when it comes to that, and it really puts Parks and Rec back out in front. And then again, we discussed police presence. So we'd love to see at least one bicycle police officer assigned to the Greenway, and maybe downtown, maybe it's a dual role, and just increase presence during events and tournaments. Again, not that you don't have that already, it's more of a presence thing, you know, a site thing for individuals. And then finally, phasing and implementation. Next slide. So we've broken down all of the recommendations into short, medium, and long term. I know it's a little hard to read there, but it'll be easier when we provide you the draft recommendation. But there's about 40 different recommendations, and generally those are tackled in a 10+ year time frame. And we can, you know, go through some of those later or now if you want. But we'll go to the next slide and then we can come back. But how do you pay for it? So outside of accommodations tax, hotel tax, any of our general funds, we wanted to make sure we provided you with a list of opportunities to go after grants and funding for this. We also wanted to provide a menu of planning level cost of a lot of the different items that you may need to do repairs on, so that some of your staff, who are wonderful grant writers, could help produce an opinion of probable construction cost to go after that dollar figure in our grants. And that is it. Sorry if that took long. I know it was exhaustive, but that wasn't 3 hours. So
Now, on our fees, for, I presume that was the activity center.
That is,
Jim, you remember we talked about a military, anyone that's, since we're near Fort Eisenhower, that a fee for, you know, a discount for membership for that.
Councilwoman, that would be part of the budget deliberations for 2025 when we set our rates and fees.
And on the amphitheaters for Country Club and Bunning Drive, and I don't want to, I love the amphitheater down here, and that's beautiful, but is that something we, and I guess we need to talk about, is that something we need at those parks?
So
especially Bunning Drive.
Yeah, that's a great point. So the one at Bunting is more of, it's a very small scale.
Okay,
so we wouldn't have any seating around it, but it's more or less an opportunity to have some small little public events for that community, or even like children putting on plays, you know. So it is not as robust as one that may be at the country club property. But the country club property would have an opportunity to hold even more than Sharon Jones Amphitheater would. So you can have varying scales of performances, if you will.
On the pool, the why, because cities are always frowned on swimming pools for liability. Would the Y then come in and be responsible, like for lifeguards, taking care of everybody that would not be the city?
That would be our desire, to discuss with them a partnership where the YMCA would come in and operate, maintain that. Sure. Any other questions?
No, I was just going to thank you guys for all the work that y'all did and put into this. As a mom that has twins that are 5 and a 9-year-old, I'm a frequent flyer at all these places. So it's fantastic to see. Shade is very important everywhere in our area. And I look forward to diving into it deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave us a lot tonight. This is very good. We appreciate it. I think that the citizens of North Augusta are looking for this kind of information so we can begin conversations and start prioritizing what it looks like, because there's a ton here.
There's a lot.
So, yeah, we have plenty of work ahead of us, but you've given us a good start. So thank you, Rick, all your group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Appreciate it.
All right, I think we're on the home stretch. We got one final item for focus items, and this is for a Riverside Village update, and I believe Brooks will be presenting. Mr. Brooks Young from South City Partners. And so for our city council and citizens at home, this is a conceptual plan. South City Partners is an organization we've had some recent interaction with here pretty much since December to talk about moving Riverside Village forward from our current status. We have a number of undeveloped parcels there in Riverside Village, and so South City, in partnership with Greenstone, wanted to make a presentation this evening and a study session to talk about their vision for moving forward, and this would be a direct effect of updating the master development agreement and some of the agreements that we have with our developer partners in that zone. So with that, I would turn it over to Brooks and Mr. Chris Shane.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Chris Shane, Greenstone Properties from Atlanta. It's almost 10 years ago that we gave you, or gave this body, a master plan that really spoke to the 30 acres that comprise the commercial district of Hammond's Ferry. Over that time, several things have changed. Demand has changed. COVID changed a tremendous amount. We had anticipated building a 6-story office building as one of the major components of the master plan, and thanks to COVID, COVID has almost wiped out the office market in total. The 14,000 square feet that we actually built is part and parcel of the left field building. When we delivered that almost 7 years ago, we were never able to lease that space. We were always in competition with much older space that was tremendously less money, typically in downtown Augusta. But over time, the master plan morphed. And I know, from the citizens and, from things that you've told us, it was very high on the list to be able to get the district completed. And so with that, we wanted to come to you with a solution that really developed all the remaining undeveloped parcels in one fell swoop. And so we wanted to try to identify a company that not only had the experience and the background, but also had the ability to bring their own capital and significant other capital coupled with financing relationships. And so in Atlanta, we identified South City Partners, knew their principals well through a bunch of years. Greenstone's major, development expertise is not multifamily. South City's is, and so we got in touch with them. We got them down here. We walked through, how they could accomplish, all the pieces in one fell swoop, and so that's really been the intent, and so. Amending the master plan in some ways, updating the master development agreement is what we've been working on, and that's the draft that I think just got delivered today. And so what I'd like to do is get Brooks Young to walk you through sort of the background on South City. And then I think from there, we'll move to the master plan, kind of walk you through that with an emphasis toward getting everybody to understand the parking and then kind of field any questions from there.
Chris. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brooks Young. I am with South City Partners, as mentioned, and we will be the lead developer on the proposed plan for the remaining parcels in Riverside Village. Before I get going on my slideshow here, I just want to say how excited and honored we at South City are to just be a part of what is already an incredible development and great community. You know, frankly, at this point, we're just here to put the cherry on top, the finishing touches on this thing, and finish it out. And we couldn't be more excited to be here. So having said that, a little bit about South City Partners. So since our inception, we'll take a step back, we're a mixed-use development company based out of Atlanta, Georgia. We do work all throughout the Southeast. Since our inception, we have delivered over 3,800 Class A multifamily units, as well as 200,000 square feet of retail space. Next slide, please. And so I won't go through, everything we've done here, take up all y'all's time tonight, but I think there are a couple projects that I would like to touch on that are relevant to what we're talking about here. The first being Alpharetta City Center, so the city of Alpharetta had 26 acres that was largely undeveloped in their downtown corridor. They ultimately decided that it was time to do something with it, and through an extensive process of interviewing multiple developers, they landed on South City Partners. We went in there and we developed a bunch of multifamily units and retail spaces that ultimately completely revitalized downtown Alpharetta by creating, a downtown city area. Since then, Alpharetta City Center and the downtown are frequently awarded as one of the best downtowns in the southeastern United States. Next slide, please. So here's the master plan. We will get into more detail on each of the parcels as we go through the presentation tonight. I think it would probably be worth kind of just running through it high level before we get into that. So let's start in the top right corner. You will see parcel C. What we are now proposing there is 87 multifamily units with 4,000 square feet of ground floor retail. Moving left on the plan, you will see parcel D, which is proposed now to be 9 townhomes with 2,000 square feet of retail. Continuing to move left to parcel K, you will see the proposal for 170 multifamily units. And dropping down to the bottom of the plan, you'll see parcel I, which we are proposing for 11 townhome units. And moving to the right next to the amphitheater, you will see parcels G and H, which is now proposed for 58 multifamily units, as well as 4,000 square feet of retail. Next slide, please. So each one of these parcels is unique in where it is in the village, and so we think that each building needs to have its own unique design while also having some elements that tie the whole project together. So throughout these renderings, you will see tapered brick elements that are an ode to the old brick plant, as well as a color scheme that's kind of an ode to SRP Park, the Augusta Green Jackets, and the overall community. So parcel K itself is unique as it's getting closer to the single-family residential area. So it's proposed to be a 4-story building that has more residential elements to it versus the retail elements, while still maintaining the brick tapestry as well as the color scheme of the overall development. We can jump to the next slide. So this is just a rendering of the courtyards in parcel K. So you will see that this project is heavily amenitized. See the multiple different uses throughout the courtyards. And in addition to the courtyards, we will have fitness centers, a clubhouse, which will have games, TVs, community activities, as well as a leasing office. Next slide. So here's parcel C, and as you all know, so parcel C is closest to the ballpark, and it's what you see as you come into the village. So here we are proposing a 5-story building with 4,000 square feet of ground floor retail. Next slide. And you'll see again a rendering of the courtyard and amenity space there. Again, very heavily amenitized project. Go to the next one. So for G and H, again, there you're more in a residential part of the project. So we are proposing a 3-story building comprised of 58 multifamily units and 4,000 square feet of retail. We don't have a courtyard there, so I don't have a courtyard plan for you. But I do think it's important to note that on all these parcels, the greenway and the brick ponds are so unique, and it is such a great amenity that already exists within this community that we will make sure all of our parcels have great access, not only for our residents, but for the retail patrons as well, to access those already great existing amenities. On that note, that's really all I have for the presentation and for the overall site plan, but I do just want to say, how excited, how honored we are to be here, to be a part of this process, and we're looking forward to working together with you all to create something that we're all extremely proud of and benefits the community overall. With that, I think we'll open it up to questions or comments to the extent there are any.
Brooks, if you would, give us some idea, are there any similarities between your previous developments? I know you've done one down in Charleston.
Yes, sir.
You've done Inman Park. Give us, because citizens, what we want to know is, are there some similarities for us to be confident about you being able to come in and finish off this project?
So yes, there's a great question, and I think yes, there are multiple similarities. I think so. I'll reference 5 projects here, which if anybody cares to look them up, you can. So Alpharetta City Center, Inman Quarter, downtown Kennesaw, which is known as Revival on Main, Avondale Estates, 99 West Edge, and 10 West Edge are all great examples of true downtown mixed-use products that we came in to help vitalize a downtown area. All of those are true mixed use with retail and multifamily units. They all required a heavy level of coordination with the municipalities within which we built them, and they were all received extremely well by the communities that they serve.
Now, will partial K have, you said 4-story?
Yes, ma'am.
Will any of that at the bottom be retail or not? Just
No, ma'am.
strictly-
As it gets farther closer to the residential, we think it's better served for the retail
Served
to be in the
okay.
retail kind of stuff.
In partial C, and you're talking about the brick pond, because we don't want anything to do anything to that brick pond.
Absolutely
It's
not.
perfect.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to stay out of that and
Right.
preserve it, and it's, again, an incredible amenity that y'all have there.
What timeline are we looking at for breaking ground, completion, and if you guys do the retail and restaurant spaces, are you looking to build before leases are signed, or are you going to wait till leases to start those projects?
So C and K will go first, and it's a matter of getting through kind of the permitting and planning process there, but we would be targeting a summertime construction start on those. Not to be vague, but that just depends on how long it takes us to get through the permitting and zoning, et cetera. On the retail, it's vertically integrated in C, so it will be built with the apartments. We will not start leasing it until we start construction, but it will be built concurrently with the apartments.
Okay, thank you.
G&H, D&I will follow subsequently, but again, the retail will be built with the apartments and will be leased starting when we break ground.
I'm going to, real quick, just, I know the retail, and I'm sure what a lot of people want to know is what are y'all targeting as far as to fill that retail space? I mean, is it restaurants, shopping, or just anybody that wants to rent a space?
No, that's a great question. So what we envision, the restaurant space is built differently than shop space. So we are envisioning a couple of restaurants, one on each parcel. So we're building out the restaurant space, and the rest of it will be a mixture of shops predominantly, is what we envision. And whether that be, a clothing shop, an outdoor shop, et cetera, but that's not finalized at this time, but that's what we anticipate as the tenants.
Have y'all been in touch with any restaurant owners, retail owners, things like that?
We have
at
not
this point?
yet. Not yet. We will hire a retail broker that will help with that process. And again, it's something we're very familiar with doing, but until we get closer to breaking ground, we will not engage a broker to start signing retail leases.
What does that look like? C and K, dirt moves in the summertime, give or take. So what's the time frame to get those two completed, you'd say?
Typically, a 22-month construction schedule is what we'd anticipate for a project of this scope. And we're already working with a general contractor. I don't have a final schedule pinned down yet naturally, but something of this scope, that's generally 22 to 24-month build out.
And would you do like, let's say, C now, wait a while, then go do K, or was everything going to start at one time?
So we would like to start C and K at the same time. G and H, D and I would come after that, but hopefully, we're not trying to space it out too far.
Yeah, that's what we don't want.
Is there
Keep
enough,
it on moving forward.
is there enough areas for lay down yards and things so it won't interrupt the businesses and, people that are already down there? Is there enough room? Because, when this was originally done, you had the hotel, ball field, Ironwood, all of that was basically going on at the same time, but there really wasn't much else there. So just, is there enough area to, stage the materials you need and without having to block off roads or anything?
Absolutely, and so it is, it is tight, but again, we're used to doing this. We've built on a half acre in downtown Atlanta. So we're familiar with it, we will figure it out, and yes, there's enough room to make it happen.
I know the parking agreement's different than MDA, but in these other communities, I'm assuming they have similarly challenging issues with parking, just like we have had, so.
And so, yeah, the parking agreement, as I'm sure you all know, we've been working with staff closely on that. We're not quite there. We're close to finalizing that. Something that we can all talk about. We're not quite there yet, but we will continue diligently working on that to resolve it.
Brooks, let me ask you, so, we're real simple people, North Augusta, and I think this is at least since I've been mayor, the first tangible step as far as we see this thing being able to happen. Y'all being here, we appreciate you being here, not just Chris, but y'all, that's important. So, are you confident that y'all have your ducks in a row to where, based on approvals and how that pans out, y'all are committed, you're ready to do this, right?
Yes, sir. We are committed.
Not like, hey, you're throwing this as pitch and then you're still got financing. You are ready if we get approvals and as things move down, y'all are ready to make this happen.
Yes, sir. We are spending money as we speak, drawing, designing, that's all well underway at this time.
Any other questions for Brooks? Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for having us.
Sir, I have no other updates for the council this time.
I have two things for, just want to make, and I'll read this on Monday at the city council meeting as well, but on Wednesday, February 21st, 2024, mayor and council and staff will be traveling to Lexington, South Carolina. The purpose of this workshop will be to discuss potential capital project sales tax 5 projects. We're going to get an update about the capital projects 4 plan, as well as we will have an update on tourism. This is being held, as we've done for the last 2 years, off-site for several reasons. One, we want minimal distractions. However, and we're also going to be taking a tour of downtown Lexington. We've done that in Newberry. We've done that in Greenwood. We're also going to do that with Lexington. There's a lot of great things happening in downtown Lexington. We want to find out about that. The location will be Town of Lexington, 111 Maiden Lane, Lexington, South Carolina. This is, it's a quorum, so we'll be present. It will be a meeting identified by Freedom of Information Act. There will be no votes or formal action, but this is an open meeting. So if you want to get in the car and drive up and spend time with us on February 21st, you're more than welcome. So you covered that, Jamie? Okay. All right, last thing. Item 4, legal executive session in compliance with section 30-4-70A2. The city attorney requesting executive session for the purpose of discussion specifically related to an amendment to the master development agreement for Riverside Village and related economic development inducement agreements. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Okay, Ms. McCauley, second, Ms. Carpenter. Okay, all in favor? That is unanimous. We are not coming back, so we stand adjourned. Thank y'all for being here.